Well, on Ignatius as a leader, there's some evidence that he could have quite a bad temper. A source we have is the diary kept by a Portuguese Jesuit called Luís Gonçalves de Câmara, who was minister at the house in Rome, and basically wandered around behind Ignatius all the time and made notes. And sometimes Ignatius seems to have behaved quite badly towards Laínez and Nadal. Gonçalves de Câmara writes this up as he knew how to treat chosen souls with appropriate severity. And maybe there's some truth in that. But there is a sign that maybe he could be a little unstable. I think the quality I most admire in him, which goes beyond leadership, is the fact that we know he had very powerful spiritual experiences. We've got the autobiography, we've got the spiritual journal. They're difficult to read, difficult to interpret, but clearly there's a rich and intense spiritual life. What he seems to have been able to do, both in the exercises and in their own way in the constitutions, is to let go of all of that and simply provide frameworks in which people following those texts can make analogous experiences of their own, have analogous experiences of their own that don't imitate Ignatius, but somehow find God directly in the way that is proper to them. This ability to have a very rich spiritual life, but then when communicating with others and trying to form others, letting go of all that personal detail, abstracting from himself. I'm using a phrase there of the commentator on the exercise at the end of the 16th century, Achille Gagliardi. His ability to abstract from what he himself had gone through and let others find God in their own way, that seems to me to be quite extraordinary. And on the whole, a quality that none of his companions quite noticed. You've got lots of stuff about how heroic he was and how holy he was. But the fact that he just let them be themselves, it's sort of there in Pierre Fabre. But really, they simply transmitted to us Ignatius the hero and Ignatius the divine legate. Another thing you certainly have to say about Ignatius as leader is that he could attract people of incredibly high quality around him. Among the first companions, you've got Xavier, you've got Fabre, you've got Laínez, all of whom have independent reputations, even now, in the 5 centuries later. No doubt similar things could be said about some of the other first companions. Then, in a second generation, he's able to attract to himself Juan de Polanco, a genius bureaucrat, and Jerónimo Nadal with a different set of skills again. He seems to have been able to, perhaps not to choose, but at least to attract people of very high quality around him, and on the whole to have been able to give them their heads. Perhaps just one thought about Ignatius for leaders today. In the constitutions, he says that the leader has got the power and the right to set aside the provision of the constitutions if he judges, in the light given him by the Holy Spirit, that such would be in conformity with the original intention of the document. That's a dangerous doctrine. It can easily be abused. But that sense of freedom from rules, that sense of keeping the underlying purpose of what you're trying to do at the center, that's perhaps something that I think anybody trying to do leadership in the Ignatian tradition, Jesuit superiors or others, they can learn from and be inspired by.